Welcome to the Amicable Divorce Network Podcast. My name is Tracy Ann Moore-Grant, and I'm the founder of the Amicable Divorce Network. Our podcast is here to educate those before, during, and after divorce, as well as divorce professionals, about all of the issues that impact a family law case. We are here to educate you about difficult topics, provide you new information, and also give solutions for how to navigate all of the issues in family law and still bring your family law case to an efficient conclusion. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Amicable Divorce Network Podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Ann Moore-Grant, founder of the Amicable Divorce Network. And if you've been following along, you know our podcast is designed to help you with all issues before, during, and after divorce, to help you be informed and divorce in the healthiest way possible. That is our passion. We are now on season 3 of the podcast. Thank you very much for sticking with us and joining us today. And I am joined today by a very interesting guest. I'm sure many of you clicked because you wanted to listen to this episode. I am joined by Jen MG, and she is an intimacy coach. And this is a first time for the podcast. We have not had this topic on here before, and so I'm very interested to get into this discussion. Jen, thank you so much for joining us.
Tracy, I think this is so exciting. Thank you so much for having me.
We think what you do is exciting, so we a lot of people don't want to talk about the sex, but we're going to be getting into that a little bit today. Mm-hmm. And so first, tell everybody about yourself and how you got into this really interesting niche space.
Well, I didn't plan on becoming a sex and intimacy educator. It kind of found me. In college, I was an RA, and I started asking residents what kind of programs that they wanted, and the answer kept coming back the same, which was sex education. So that led me to work with the campus health clinic while I was getting my social work degree. And ever since then, for over 20 years, sexuality and intimacy have just been a through line in my work across education, therapeutic spaces, and now into coaching. And actually, since 2020, I've focused very specifically on helping people navigate intimacy in a way that's embodied and honest, because the truth is desires change, bodies change, life changes, and most people are still using outdated tools when it comes to intimacy, and tools that don't account for midlife and the hormonal shifts that happen or even evolving desires. And so what I help people do is redefine intimacy starting with themselves and then in relationships, so it reflects who they are now, not who they were 10 or 20 years ago.
That is really great to hear. A hot topic at Amicable Divorce Network, because we do the same thing. What sort of programming do you want? What do you want to hear about? And it is all about gray divorce, perimenopause, and menopause, and how that impacts people and their decision making and their emotions. And so this is something that we're very passionate about as well, meeting people where they're at and learning how to help them. But how do you see this particular space being impacted by divorce?
The space of aging or the space of intimacy? Space of intimacy,
I would say.
Of course. Well, so I think that so many people go into or going through divorce in a space that is trying to navigate multiple transitions at the same time. They're trying to go through emotionally, financially, legally, but also even in their nervous system and relationally. Because even when a divorce is easy and peaceful and well handled, it still represents a major identity shift. And the way that somebody has learned to relate or attach or even feel safe in connection has changed. And so I think that most people are using old strategies that are no longer working.
And is that because they're going back to the time when they dated before, and maybe that was the 90s, and so they're like, this is what I know, and so I'm going to go back to that playbook?
Yeah, so most people are using what I call Act 1. So that first half of life, these intimacy strategies are something like using a lot of effort or accommodation or even keeping the peace or performing in order to stay connected. And those strategies often worked at one point until they stopped.
Yeah.
And so after divorce, people often try to apply those same strategies in a completely new context, and they stop working. And that's when intimacy starts to feel confusing or pressured or shuts down altogether. It depends on the human. And it's not because something is wrong with them. It's because their bodies and their nervous systems are asking for just a different way of relating. And then you add in grief and stress and uncertainty. even in the best of divorces. And it makes sense that intimacy would feel harder to access or feel unsuccessful in the way that people have experienced before. And when people experience this as not a failure, but understand it's a mismatch between old intimacy skills and this new chapter of life.
So without getting too graphic, what would be an example of an old intimacy skill that may not work now in 2026 or into somebody's life as they have progressed to a different phase of life?
Of course. So I see this a lot when people are starting to get back into the dating scene. They're using strategies that are, a lot of it is performative. Okay. It is who they think they should be in this moment versus who they are. And when I work with people, I work on 3 different levels of this. So the first is around bodies and desires. The second is around the way that we relate and communicate. And the third is around erotic confidence. And so really understanding who you are, what is working and what isn't working. For example, at this stage, bodies are really changing. And I mean, like specifically speaking about hips might be sore, backs, knees, positions might not work like they did before.
I fell down the other day like a geriatric person on the ice. So you're speaking my language right now.
Exactly. Even a hard workout will cause muscles to feel in a way, and so being able to say this isn't going to work for me right now if it's in an physical intimate act, for example, and that being heard in a way that isn't a judgment or an attack or something that says something about the other person versus it just being that bodies are going to be different on a daily basis, and that's okay, and meeting that where they are. For example, well, I don't know how PG-13 you want to go, but like
we don't have a lot of kids at the Amicable Divorce Network podcast.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, so keep it PG-13.
Yes. Well, and men are dealing with erection issues as they get older, and women are dealing with libido changes as they get older, and none of this is necessarily permanent. A lot of this is emotional rather than physical, and so there's a lot of skills to learn to help shift the intimacy from obligation to choice or from pressure to performance or to presence. Yeah.
I think it's very interesting to look at this in different phases of life and what's going on with people. Do you find that there's a particular demographic of people that are seeking out your services, or is it just all across the board, age and gender?
It's all across the board, age and gender. I'm about 50-50 currently with my clients, male and female. I am about 70-30 single to partnered. And of those that are single, 95% have been divorced. And of those that have been divorced, 85% of them are 45 and above. I have clients as young as 25, but I have clients as old as 80. Wow. And they are navigating the changes in their body, wanting to stay connected. And really and truly, the education of learning about intimacy as something that is not just sex. People they have the wrong definition of that sometimes. And I don't mean wrong. I mean, it's just an outdated as we get older because it's no longer
unevolved for their age. Perhaps.
That is exactly what I say. Yes, exactly.
And so what sort of tips and things do you help them with or coach them on to update this, sort of perspective and get with their age group, so to speak?
Yeah, well, it's not really with their age group. It's with their own body.
With their person, yes.
Yes, with their own individual experience, because I have a 30-year-old who's having back issues right now. But I have, so like, yeah.
Someone's playing pickleball.
Probably. And so, I'm sorry, what was your question again?
Well, just in regards to, the skills and the different things like that, regards to like some specific tips that we can give our listeners to be thinking on, as to, where they need to be in this space of intimacy.
Absolutely. Thank you. So the very first thing I usually work with people about is really identifying where they are right now. Not who they would like to be, not who they were, but what is happening right now. And that literally can be changing on a daily basis, or we can look at a broader picture of where they are. And that idea of not only what do you want, maybe for the first time ever to actually get a chance to explain this to yourself or another person who's not going to judge you. It becomes really freeing and expanding. So what do you want now? And what are you available for? This is a question that a lot of people don't honestly answer, and yet they go out and date. And so if they're only wanting to go out and have sexual experiences, or they only want to go out and be very shallow on the surface, but they say they're interested in a long-term relationship, those two aren't going to match, and people are going to feel it on the other end of a dating app or the other end of a dinner table. Or if they say they want to go out and be in a long-term relationship, but they literally don't have the time to devote to somebody, then they just have to be real about that. And so many people don't understand that those factors will play into how they're able to meet somebody, how they're able to be intimate with that person in that way of really truly being seen.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. Not just a physical intimacy, but what is your availability emotionally, for a relationship? Because I was out there on the apps before I got married, and of course everybody is looking for a long-term relationship, and then it's like, you are not,
Right.
Could have saved a taco dinner here,
Right.
So it's, very important, I think, to be aligned in that regard. Another really interesting point, that you made is, as we age and change, our needs change, our desires change, and it's, I think, very difficult for partners to, especially if you've been with the same partner a long time and they knew you as, the young buck and everything like that, to be like, this isn't you at all. Like, this is me. I just want to be left alone with my dog.
Yes. But to be able to have those honest communication styles, people were taught to talk about love. And we learned that through the love languages and other things. And it's easier to talk about love. People were never taught to talk about desire in a way that was shame-free, judgment-free. And sometimes when people come to me, it's the first time that they were able to say out loud what it is that they truly want.
Yeah.
And having a sounding board for that helps a lot of people to find a way to explain to their partner, whether it's a new partner or a partner they've been with for years and years.
Yeah.
That sense of strong, not strong as in rigid, but clear and direct and honest communication becomes the erotic infrastructure for being able to be truly intimate with another person. Because you're not putting on a role, you're not putting on an act, you're literally saying, hey, see me, this is who I am right in this moment, and I want you to see this. It's not an attack, it's not anything about you, it's about me in this moment. And it takes new skills, and it's something that is simple to learn, and it takes intention and practice, but it can really shift the way that people experience intimacy, whether that is, and I think of intimacy in a very broad sense.
Yeah.
And so I love Esther Perel and the way that she says intimacy. She breaks it down to be into me you see. And my personal experience of intimacy is the experience of being met and truly seen. And it shows up as emotional closeness and nervous system safety and presence. Presence can be so sexy. And even the ability to be honest without performing or proving anything, that's intimacy. And a lot of people were just taught to equate intimacy with sex, and then sex with performance. And in my work, intimacy is just so much bigger than that. And it includes how we communicate. It includes how safe we feel to be ourselves. That starts as an inside job. That is not necessarily how you're going to be met on the outside. It's how do you feel about yourself, and then how to connect who we are in our own bodies and desires with another human.
Yeah. I think something just in my work as a divorce attorney I've seen is, when people come to me and they have a very long-term marriage that is ending, gray divorce is the highest population of people, divorcing. And so we see this quite a lot. And a lot of that population want an amicable divorce because they don't want to set their money on fire for retirement and, so many different issues. But they may have been married, 20 plus years, 30 years, and almost always I'm hearing, and the magic died, and it sounds like what you're saying is they didn't prepare for a magic transition or know how to handle that.
Yeah. And so many times it's not a dramatic stop to desire. It's a slow fade over time. And these things are because Act 1 intimacy is trying to be pushed and forced. And I mean, it becomes a place where as we get older, midlife is really not midlife intimacy is really not about trying harder and pushing through. It's about giving ourselves permission to slow down, to tune into ourselves and or our partner, and then connection can unfold rather than forcing it. I actually honestly tell clients that intimacy becomes more honest with age.
Yeah. I think that sounds absolutely correct, the way that you're, describing it and talking about it in such a new and interesting perspective. So when people come to work with you, do you work with individuals or couples?
I have found over all the time that individuals just seem to work out a little bit better. So even if they come as a couple, I will see them individually, because what tends to happen is usually they have a lot of love maybe, or even some conflict and tension, but something about their communication isn't working. And I find that it won't magically fix itself just because I'm sitting on Zoom with them. And so what I get them to do instead is sit with me and tell me really and truly what's going on. And then I help them learn how to bridge that with each other.
Yeah.
It's been so successful.
It's definitely. I think it's very well needed. It's just such an interesting thing to be focusing on, and is something that people, it sounds like if they identify and work on, can have a lot of enjoyment, but also more honest connection as they move forward. Because obviously what, I do is really focus on people going through the transition of divorce. And we see a high population, I'm just going to say, because the statistics are out there, of men that get remarried very quickly.
Yes.
And then women tend to wait a little bit longer. So why do you think that is?
I have a lot of theories, both personal and professional, so I will stick with the professional ones, which are that men tend to rely on some of the more domestic things that come with a wife. Also, men can use medication to perform sex in a way that is allowing them to be in this act one intimacy and not having to evolve. Whereas women are saying, this really isn't working for me. I need more. And so that's why I work with men and women, because it is such easy, learnable tools. And I think the beauty of this is that what becomes possible for people is that it's the first thing that becomes possible is relief. They stop assuming something is wrong with them or that they're not enough. And this is the language that happens in my Zoom room all the time. And so from there, curiosity opens up. So instead of asking, why can't I do this the way that I used to? Whatever that is, they begin asking what actually feels true for me now, rather than judging that to be right or wrong or a failure or whatever. And so Act 2 intimacy requires just some new skills. And these skills are things that shift intimacy in a way that allows desire to reorganize and become clear and real. And very often people tell me that this chapter becomes the most alive they've ever felt, because for the first time they're trying not to be who they were, but they're building intimacy that actually fits who they are now.
Yeah, I think that's just so important.
Yeah.
It's been a really great conversation, just thinking, because I often think about sometimes when I'm going through a divorce with a client, and, almost always they're like, how soon can I date? And I'm like, please get divorced first. But it's, and I don't think I've ever heard of anybody sitting down and really sort of evaluating where they're at. They don't probably talk to me about it if they are, but it's just a really new thing for me to be able to offer, to clients as a recommendation in this space. And since we do focus on, people going through divorce, I've heard so many great tips during our conversation today. But what would you say is like somebody's gone through a divorce, what would be your best recommendations for them, like your top 3 tips for them to now get through this process and move forward as best as they can?
Okay, so I would definitely tell everybody to take their time. I think that divorce is an actual beautiful catalyst for change, and it has the ability to give you time and perspective to reorient all of the areas of your life, and intimacy and sex is absolutely one of them. And if you rush back out, you're not taking the time to recalibrate yourself, to figure out what worked, what didn't. Take self-responsibility, understand what you allowed in the other, and there's a lot of self-reflection that I have done over many relationships, and just find it to be so, so invaluable And so I would definitely say that's the very first thing. Take your time. Now, having sex, if that's what you want to do, fine. And here's where I want to bring back this point about the difference in men and women too. A lot of men actually want intimacy, but they have only been taught that intimacy comes with sex. So that's why they go out and they date and I am all for the exploration and the expansion that comes after a long relationship of feeling broken and wrong and it not working, especially in this such a vulnerable place of intimacy around sex. So yes, do that, but just get clear on what you want. That's all I ask. Just get really clear so that the person that you're interacting with is just as clear. And I have scripts that people can use to figure out like what places they are. I have lots of tools and things for that.
I think that's a great tip. It's sort of two parts. Not only do you need to figure out what's going on with you, but you have to have sort of the courage and the wherewithal to not tell the other person what they're wanting to hear, but your truth. Because
1,000%.
But because that's the only way to move forward and have a productive, healthy relationship. But I think even if a lot of people go through the first part of figuring it out, there's that, how do I discuss this with the other person? I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to not meet their expectations. I don't want to lose them as a person. You know, and so I think sort of that second step may be where people get hung up a bit.
They do, and that's why they come to see me. And what I call that is erotic confidence. So it's one thing to know who you are, and it's another to fully own it and to know, like, I have a full way of talking about myself when I meet someone new, and I thoroughly love who I am and who I've become and what I'm looking for. And I use that information as a beautiful and kind vetting process. I'm like, this is what I'm looking for. If that doesn't match, you're a super wonderful human and not my person right now. So, and I think that that's an abundance lack mindset to work with. And I think also that this whole dating app situation, I have a love-hate relationship with it. I personally don't use it. I did just for professional reasons and to understand so I could help people, but I really think that people should get out and actually live their lives. I think that I personally wish that every human on this planet could learn how to partner dance. I don't care what dance that is, just learn. It is a living laboratory for me with the feminine masculine dynamic. And I think it is such an important thing about communication because you can communicate very little with no words, with just two fingers. And it's how clear can you be? And it's amazing. So, but get out, go grocery shopping. Don't get your groceries sent to your home. Like get out into the world, pursue hobbies, because what I would love for people to do is create and cultivate. This is the word I love using, is cultivate a life and friends. Please get friends. Do not do this by yourself. Cultivate a life that you want to live so that somebody wants to join you in your life. Not so that you can find somebody who will make your life, but who wants to join this awesome life you've already got so that you're not starving for that next person. You're satisfying intimacy, which is also with friends. It's like, can you see who I am and can you love and accept that person that you see in front of you? And so I do feel like getting out, being an active human is so important to think. There's this cool app that I've started recommending to a lot of people called Time Left. It's a weird word, TIMELEFT. And they curate dinners for people. And it's 6 strangers at a table. And you can pick your price level. And it's in most major cities. And you can do it if you're married. Or it's not a dating app, people. It is not. But you meet people. And it could be your next best friend. Or it could be the sister of the next person you're going to date. Or it could just be a delightful human who wanted to also have dinner that night and you didn't have to eat alone and you didn't even have to make reservations. You just show up.
I've not heard of that. That's very cool.
So there's a lot of tricks that I have, not just in the bedroom. Yes, I can give people tips and tricks, but I have, there's a lot of ways that people can really live a big, beautiful life that invites another human in versus coming from a place of lack and need to fill the space, which I see a lot of people just jumping into.
Excellent point. We obviously see that a lot. And just give a plug for prenups if you're getting married for a second time. So I'm sure that anybody listening to this is going to want to reach out to you to work with you, or they have a friend or a sister or a brother that they need to recommend. What is the best way for them to reach you?
My website is the easiest way for people to connect with you. You can get a feel for my approach. You can see how I work with people one-on-one. You can learn about my retreats. I also share a lot of educational resources there, like quizzes and blogs. So if people are just curious, there's plenty to explore that might help you start thinking differently about intimacy at your own pace.
That's wonderful. So what's that website?
It's jenmg.com, jenmg.com. Super easy.
Easy enough. So if you're driving, don't panic. This will be in the show notes. And so just save this episode and you can come back and we'll have all of Jen MG's information in the show notes so that you can drive safely to your destination and reach out to her later. Jen, thank you so much for this. This was a wonderful conversation. I hope to have many more with you about this. So this was absolutely great. And thank you for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you so much. So fun.